or what they've done to provide for my wife or the families on our staff, the welcoming that we've had in the city of Knoxville, and it's been everywhere that we've been. So I'm excited to have an opportunity to give back to this fan base. My goal is to help put a football team on the field that they can be proud of by the way they play with their toughness, their effort, the way they play together, they play smart, that no matter what's on the scoreboard, when they leave the stadium, they say, you know what, that's our team. Okay, that's what I want to be able to give to our fan base.
All right, Coach, we'll go straight in front of me a little bit over halfway back.
Corey Repkin, Daily Times in Maryville. Some of the coaches this week have talked about establishing their culture, in their first season, second season. What are your biggest focal points for that, and what's the process you're going to take to do that? And also, what led to Eli Wolf being the most improved player during the spring?
Well, the first part with Eli Wolf is when we started spring, Eli probably couldn't block me. And by the time the spring was over with, Eli had learned to strain and try to finish and really done a good job. If we can get everybody to compete and play with the effort and toughness and intensity that Eli was playing with maybe the last 7 or 8 practices, we're going to be fine. As far as the culture, to me, it's about expectations. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. I think it's important that everything in the organization is defined. It's clear. Everybody has an understanding. And if somebody's not meeting the expectations, you got to be able to confront them and get it fixed, or they're going to continue to do the same thing.
Okay, Coach, we'll go over to the right. Dwayne.
Yes, Coach. Dwayne Rankin, Montgomery Advertiser. 2-part question. 1, now that Brandon Kennedy has arrived, how do you feel about it now? And 2, has that caused any kind of rift between you and Coach Saban?
Well, first of all, Brandon, we're excited to have him. He'll be a great part for our offensive line. The guy's smart, obviously graduates and he still has 2 years of eligibility. He's a really good competitor. Unfortunately, he got hurt there 1 year, so we're excited to have him, and absolutely not. I respect Coach Saban. We're friends. He's been really good to me over the years. I wouldn't be standing here if he hadn't called and offered me a job one day, and I'm very thankful for him for doing that.
Coach, we'll go back over here to our left.
Hey, Coach. Bertie Marino, Red at RCFB here. How much do you expect J.J. Peterson and the rest of your first recruiting class to contribute this year?
Well, we have a couple of guys that are out there that we're still waiting to get information back, and as we gather that information, we'll know when they're going to be there.
Okay, we'll go all the way to the back on the near aisle.
Coach Pruitt, Drew DeArmond, WZZN Radio, Huntsville, Alabama. A 2-part question. First, talk about adding Will Friend as your offensive line coach. I know you guys have a pre-existing relationship back to your playing days at Alabama. And then also your father, Dale Pruitt, now at Albertville High School. I know you played for him and coached under him. What are the biggest influences he had on you in your coaching career and the way you handle your program?
Well, I would say this about my dad to start with. He always saw the good in people. He found a way to get the most out of them. He never gave up on young men. So over the years, you would sit there and there'd be somebody that you didn't think would ever play, and by the time he was a senior, he'd be playing or whatever. But he didn't only just do that with his players. He done that with the other students in the school. So I think that was important to me. As far as Will Friend, me and Will played together. We lived together in college. Coached with him. I've coached against him. Probably in the last several years, going against him, there's only a few teams that really ran the ball consistently against us, and 2 of them were teams that he was the O-line coach on. One of them was the 2012 Georgia team, and one of them was last year at Colorado State. So I think Will does a fantastic job. Again, he's a coach's son. He started off as a high school coach. Very good teacher, motivator, hard-nosed approach, great guy.
Coach, we'll go straight in front of me, halfway back.
Charles Odom with the Associated Press. You mentioned the 12 players who were held out in the spring due to injury. Can you give an update on Trey Smith and what's his clearance level for the fall.
Yeah, our doctor's done a fantastic job of recognizing Trey had a condition in the spring that kept him out of practice. They diagnosed it, treated it. He's going to be back in the fall, and we're excited to have him back. Can't wait to get him back, and I know he's excited about coming back. You know, he keeps talking to me about, man, I missed all these reps in the spring. I said, Trey, I promise you, you'll be fine.
Okay, we'll go over here to our left.
Hey, Coach, Houston Home Journal, Warner Robins, Georgia. How important is Marcus Callaway to this coming season?
Well, I think if you're going to be good on offense, you better have guys that are hard to guard on the perimeter. Either they can take the top off or they're big power forward guys. I know that puts pressure on defenses as a defensive coordinator. If they don't have guys that can win outside, it makes it easy to call the game. I think Marquez gives us that element of a guy who can play with speed or he can play with power, and we're excited about seeing what he can do this fall.
Okay, we have time for one or two more. If you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll go back over here to the left side in the middle. Microphone's on its way.
Hey, Coach, Zach Bingham, A to Z Sports Nashville. How would you assess your quarterback room with the guys you have and then the addition of Keller Chris?
You know, we have two young men, Jarrett and Will, that were there in the spring, so they're going to have 15 practices under their belt. We add Keller Chris, who is coming from Stanford, who's played some football there, has experience, and we're adding a young man out of California, J.T. Shrout. We're going to give all four of those guys opportunities in fall camp. I think for us, you know, seeing what these other two new guys can do along with what the guys see how they progress in fall camp. I think it's going to be important for us as a staff to start whittling it down pretty fast so we can kind of create some rhythm and timing and a little bit of chemistry on offense and figure out who our guys are going to be.
Okay, we'll go over here on the left on the aisle. Chip.
Morning, Jeremy. Chip Towers, Cox Media Group. I just wondered, how would you characterize your time in Athens and your relationship with Mark Richt, and how that relationship is today, and how it might have affected helping you become a head coach eventually?
Yeah, well, you know, I've been very, very fortunate to work for some really good coaches. I mean, I worked for my dad, worked for some great guys in high school, worked with guys who are now head coaches. But, you know, working with Coach Saban, Coach Rick, Jimbo, it's been there's a lot of lessons that I've learned. You know, you talk about Coach Saban. You know, I could sit here and write a book because I worked with him the longest. I worked for him for 8 years. You know, everything in Coach Saban's program is defined. He's relentless. Nobody works harder than he does. He's a great coach, great teacher. You know, Jimbo, I talked to Jimbo last night on the phone. Jimbo, kind of from the same tree, hard-nosed, competitor, great evaluator. You know, his teams play great. Coach Rick, you know, it's very interesting when you look at Coach Rick's background was probably through Coach Bowden, and, you know, you got the Saban deal. I think I'm probably one of the few guys that's had an opportunity to work in both kind of family trees there. You know, Coach Rick, you know, the things that he taught you, know, one thing that probably the biggest thing to me is there's more to life than football. I know that sounds, but there is. And, you know, and one of these days that they ain't going to care how many championships you win and all that. So I'm very thankful for the opportunity. My time in Athens, I loved it, built a lot of great relationships. And now, obviously, we play them the fourth week, and Kirby's there, and I'm sure I want to beat him. He'll want to beat me. So,
All right, we'll take one final question over midway on the right.
Coach, Lucas Penzica again, WDKN Radio. At the running back position, you guys returned Tim Jordan and Ty Chandler, and Madre London coming in from Michigan State. Do you expect to see a running back by committee approach to that position this fall?
Well, I think if you're going to be good at running the football in this league, you better probably have 4 to 6 guys. It's a physical game. You know, when you turn around and hand the ball, there's 11 guys on the other side who are usually big and fast and angry trying to hit you, so there's lots of contact. I think you you probably need four to six guys. You know, Ty and Tim both were there.